This is the Landlord Advocates. I'm your host, Matthew Lyman. Welcome back. The topic today, landlords, should make everyone in America, landlords that is, very angry. Very angry. The topic affects all of us, all the landlords, because it is a tool used by landlords to do background checks, to determine whether or not you want that tenant living in your dwelling. Here in New York State, as of June 14, 2019, this tool was taken away from landlords. It actually made it simply wrong to do this particular tool. And that tool is this. Tenant blacklists. We know what they are. They're lists that are utilized by landlords all over the United States to have tenants who have been evicted so that the rest of the landlords know to say, hey, wait a minute, you may not want to rent to them. Here in New York State, the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act of 2019 was signed by Governor Cuomo on June 14th of 2019. And that law made it where landlords cannot check names of tenants who have been evicted. The particular wording of that law is on page 45, and we're going to read that to you now. And we're going to tell you what happens if you violate this section of the law. It goes, denial on the basis of involvement in prior disputes prohibited. Number 1. No landlord of a residential premises shall refuse to rent or offer to lease to a potential tenant on the basis that that potential tenant was involved in a past or pending landlord-tenant action or summary proceeding under Article 7 of the Real Property Actions and Proceedings Law. Article 7 is all evictions, and that's what Article 7 is. It covers all evictions and the grounds therefore. It goes on further to say there shall be a rebuttal presumption. We'll define that for you in a moment. A rebuttal presumption that a person is in violation of this section if it is established that that person requested information from a tenant screening bureau, such as our company, relating to a potential tenant or otherwise inspected court records relating to a potential tenant, and the person subsequently refuses to rent or offer a lease to the potential tenant. That is the section of law that we're looking at right now. That is in New York State that says if you do this, you're in trouble. Now, what do they mean by a rebuttal presumption? What that means, landlords, is that you may have 10 variables that you will determine whether or not you want to rent to somebody, that they're going to become your tenant. They may violate 6 of those. They may not meet those standards, and you might say, no, I'm not renting to them because I'm not going to do it. If one of them is looking at a tenant blacklist and the others are not, it will be presumed by the New York State government that that was the reason why you said no to that tenant moving into your dwelling. They're not going to look at the other reasons, they're only looking at that. And by doing so, that is a minimum $500 to a maximum $1,000 fine per violation. So does that mean if you have a husband and a wife or wanting to be potential tenants and you say, I'm sorry, I can't rent to you, and it was found that you used this particular blacklist and they were on it, does that mean it's going to be a minimum fine of $1,000 to a maximum of 2? Because there were 2 names that you checked and they're husband and wife. So it's going to be a $2,000 fine. When will it go up? How much money are you going to have to spend by checking this list? Now, here's where this is going to get even more angry for you landlords. Now remember, for those of you watching, you may be in Wyoming, you may be in Kansas, you may be in North Dakota, and you might say, well, this really isn't affecting me, so I'm going to pass. Don't do that. Because there are members of Congress right now who are looking to pass such a law. And if they do, it'll become nationwide. Nationwide. So blacklists will be forbidden in every state from Maine to Hawaii. So this is important for you landlords to watch who may not necessarily be in New York. Watch this video. Here is where another reason will be for you landlords to get angry. Because there is two organizations in New York City called the Housing Justice Coalition and the Right To Counsel Coalition. They work together with other pro-tenant organizations, housing advocates, and other tenants. And they have formulated a list. And that list is the 20 worst evictors, landlords, in New York City. They comprise this list every year. So the tenants and their advocates have a list of the 20 worst landlords, as they deem them to be the worst landlords, going to eviction courts in New York City. So they can have a list, but landlords cannot. Now, when they put this list out, they have a little memo above it, a couple of paragraphs before they display the list. We're going to go over some of the comments that they have, some of the innuendos, some of the actions that they want tenants to take when they read this list. I'm going to go over some of that right now. They have on here, in the midst of an unprecedented health crisis that has hit Black and brown New Yorkers the hardest, the courts are reopening after a short closure. Short closure. 8 months, 9 months before you can even be in court. 2 or 3 months later to get tenants out. You'd be looking at a year of no rent, tenants damaging the property, and you can't get them out. And these individuals, these coalitions call that a short closure. Well, let me tell you, landlords don't call it a short closure. It's long, very long, too long. You go on to say that these same tenants will now go from battling COVID to battling the trauma of evictions. And the Academy Award goes to the trauma of evictions. What about the trauma that landlords are going through, knowing that the tenants may be destroying the property, they may be not paying the rent, they have issues that they want to get a hold of code about, they're not paying any of the rent, and now here these landlords are faced, in some areas, with maybe a $2,000 tax bill, and some of them are faced with $1 million tax bill for the properties that they own on this list, maybe even a few $1 million. That's trauma to them. What about their trauma? The sentence after the one I just read is highly inflammatory and very wrong. We're going to read it to you, and we're going to offer our commentary. When we read it to you, this should offend everyone across America. And that sentence is, and I'm going to read it perfectly, I don't want to miss one word, is this. Black tenants are twice as likely to be threatened with an eviction than white tenants. Yes. Black tenants are twice as likely to be threatened with an eviction than white tenants. Seriously? Do you really believe, you organizations, you coalitions, do you seriously believe that landlords are evicting tenants based upon their race? No, they're not. They want to evict because the rents are not getting paid and the properties are not being kept up and the properties are being destroyed by the tenants. That's the basis of the eviction. They don't care if the tenant is white, black, Asian, Indian, gay, straight, young, old, heavy, skinny. They don't care about any of those factors. They don't care. They only care that the tenants are paying the rent when they're supposed to and not destroying the property. So when you say that blacks are twice as likely to be evicted or threatened with an eviction over white people is inflammatory. That is our channel, the Landlord Advocates assertion on that sentence. We invite you landlords to leave your comments below. We invite you to take to social media and share this information. And say, how dare these organizations, how dare these coalitions say that about us? That is very wrong, especially now in the trying times that we Americans are facing together. This is not a race issue. This is not an ethnicity. This is not a sexual orientation. This is not an age issue. It's an issue of rent being paid or not being paid, or property being destroyed or not being destroyed, and landlords being able to acquire their property, get it back. That's all it's about. They go on to say this, that the most evictors continue to weaponize housing courts. That's right. They continue to weaponize housing courts. Okay. Landlords are not weaponizing the housing courts. Landlords are doing what they are legally allowed to do to remove an unwanted tenant, is to go through the judicial process. As we mentioned in our last video, you cannot do a constructive eviction. These landlords know that. Most landlords should know that you cannot illegally evict your tenant. You must go through the judicial means to remove your tenant. So by going to housing court, summary proceeding court, eviction court, whatever you call it, in your jurisdiction is not relevant. It is what it is. So for them to say that the landlords are weaponizing the courts to their benefit, they are wrong. But if they want to use that argument, how about landlords being able to use this argument? When a tenant is facing an eviction, or know that they can't pay rent, or that they know that they've destroyed the property and the landlord is thinking about doing the eviction, how is it that the tenants will weaponize the code enforcement office or the buildings department in your municipality and complain about the habitability of their dwelling? Now, landlords out there, in some municipalities, it should be in all, but it may not be, they require you to have a certificate of occupancy or a rental certificate for that dwelling. Basically saying that the dwelling meets habitability standards under the law for those people to live there. You should have that. If you don't have that, shame on you. You need that. It's a protection for you as the landlord. It protects you in many ways. We'll talk about that in another video, but right now that's what we're talking about, is that you need to get those. But here you are, you have it. The tenants are living there. Now there's issues, and they go to code. Code comes by to your house. It's missing smoke detectors, carbon monoxide, there's no heat, the stove is broken, the toilet doesn't work, the window's broken. Okay. It was fine when they moved in. Here's the document that you sent and that you signed, saying that the place was perfect when they moved in, and these were not issues, now they are. But now, we as the landlords are dragged into code court, time off for work. We're dragged in. We may hire an attorney to represent us. We have to pay a fine. We're chastised by the judge for these transgressions that we have given to the tenant in the apartment that have caused us. No, the tenants have caused that. When will the tenants be held accountable for their actions? For breaking windows, breaking up the floor, breaking up the tub, stuffing up the tub, breaking the toilet bowl. When would they be held accountable for those? So if you want to talk about weaponizing, that's weaponizing. Now, landlords, before we go into some of the numbers that these coalitions have against these 20 landlords, I want to give you one bonus. And that bonus is this. Shut your mouth. What did he just tell me? What did he just tell? I told you to shut your mouth. And what do I mean by that? This is a line that we have used at landlord training seminars across New York, where we teach landlords how to become better landlords. So as you know, that's the purpose of this channel, is to help landlords become better landlords. When we tell you to shut your mouth, if you're intending on evicting your tenant, don't tell them that. Don't complain. Shh. Go to your attorney. Get the paperwork conformed properly, served properly upon your tenants, the initiation of the eviction. Do that. By doing that, now, prior to a tenant going to code and complaining or building to complain about this or that, by you initiating the eviction before they do that, their argument of a retaliatory eviction could very well be diminished or non-existent. But if you run your mouth in anger or frustration to your tenant that we're going to evict you because we're not happy, by the time you walk out of that door, they've dialed 10 digits and they're on the phone to code enforcement on you. Even though they have caused the problem, they've done that. So landlords, shut your mouth when you want to do an eviction and just do it. Shut your mouth. Now, looking at these numbers that these coalitions have, the 20 landlords, we're not going to go over all the numbers, it's mind-boggling. But number 20 on the list of 2019 has got 3,789 families housed. Doors. 3,789 doors. Number 20 on this list did a whopping 51 evictions. 20 on the list, he did 51 evictions out of 3,789 apartments, units, whatever you want to call them. And he's 20 on the list? Really? The one that has the lowest amount of units is number 18. That one has 1,555 apartments. That entity only evicted 51 again. Now you might ask yourself, why isn't Matt telling us the names of the landlords? We're not doing that. This list lists all the names, entities that it may be owned by, a PLLC, an LLC, a corporation, S corporation, may be owned by them. It has pictures. It has who represents them. It has nasty narratives about a lot of these landlords. So they can have all of this against landlords, but landlords can have a list of just the name Johnny Appleseed is a bad tenant. Don't rent to him. You can't even have that. But these coalitions can have these lists of landlords and disseminate it any way they want to harm these landlords based upon these statistics. Number 2 on the list has got 13,531 units. That entity did 151 evictions. Still, for the amount of doors, 13,531, and you did 151 evictions, and he's number 2 on the list, that's still not a lot. Now, number 1 on the list of 2019 of the worst evictors in New York City has got 4,321 apartments. And that gentleman did 158. His LLC did 158 evictions. Even in the grand scheme of things, 158 evictions for 4,321 is not a lot. It's not a lot. When we add up all those numbers on these statistics that this group has put together in this coalition, they are talking about families housed is 121,565. There were 1,650 evictions on those families. So you have 121,565 families housed on these 20 worst evictors in 2019, according to these Right To Counsel Coalition and Housing Justice for All Coalition. And they did 1,650 evictions. Those numbers are minuscule. Now, they had 40,000, 50,000, 75,000. Yeah, we might say what's going on here. But really, those numbers are low. Now, we're going to do other videos on these organizations because they have 10 demands that they want from the state and federal government against landlords. We have perused those demands, and they will blow your mind away. But landlords, we're not going to tell you what they are because we want you to subscribe to our channel. We want you to watch our videos. We want you to like our videos. We want you to tell the rest of the YouTube world, the Facebook world, Instagram, Reddit, LinkedIn. We want you to let them all know about our channel so that the more we grow and the more you know, the more that we can all help each other in the landlord world against those who don't want to help us. They want to thwart us. They want to hurt us. And that's what this is doing. They may deny it. These organizations may want to candy coat it. The tenants may want to candy coat it. But we landlords know that this is a mouthful of cavities that we don't want, we don't deserve, we don't need. Landlords, thank you for watching. Subscribe to our channel. And be prepared. There's more videos on the way. Thank you again for watching and take care.